Good evening. This is the January 16th ZBA meeting, and this meeting is being recorded, so at this time I'm just going to ask if anyone else in the audience is recording. And seeing none. Before we start, so tonight we have one voting member absent, so we just need to have, so Dennis, as the alternate, will vote as the fifth member. So we have a 7 o'clock hearing, and I got to apologize, I'm going to probably mispronounce the name, but applicant Achaemenes Epimenides requesting a variance under section 3.2.2.3.1 and a special permit under section 9.3.6.2 of the Auburn zoning bylaws for use of a multifamily dwelling on property located at 196 Leicester Street, Auburn, Mass. And if you'd like to come up to the mic.
Motion to open the meeting?
Oh, I'm sorry, I always get it.
Motion to open the meeting?
Second.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Dennis. Yeah. Good evening. Maybe just introduce yourself and then give us a little background of what.
Yes. My name is Achaemenes Epimenides,
Okay.
and I live on 196 Leicester Street. And the reason I'm here tonight is because I represent Miss Ann Baker, who is the owner of the property. So I act as a proxy in this whole process. And as you have mentioned, I'm here trying to get the property recognized as a multifamily dwelling, specifically a 4-unit.
And I see that the building inspector put, you're looking for a dimensional variance to allow a lot area of 20,000 square feet from, and right now it's required to have, you would have, required to have a lot of 40,000 square feet with a 4-unit building. The bylaw requires 10,000 square feet per unit. Is the building currently a 4-unit building, or
It is.
And did anyone explain to you the criteria in terms of what you would need to show us in terms of what would make it eligible for a variance?
Well, I had to make the application, and documents-wise, I wasn't required to submit anything else besides the application itself. I was given some explanations by Mr. Antanovica, or Nicholas, and that's all I did.
If I may, through the chair. The applicant did come and speak with me. As far as documentation, the site's an existing lot site. They're not changing the configuration. The house has been existing on the lot for many years at this point. So they're not changing any configurations on the lot. That's why I didn't ask him to submit a site plan. The lot has been in this condition for many years. They're not changing the condition. The applicant, through the owner, also submitted a brief as to the requisites for the hardship for the variance for the special permit. Those are the only documentations that I asked them to submit. I didn't require them to submit a survey or any type of plot plan because the property is not changing in any manner.
Before I open up the questions from the board, was there ever any prior, there was probably no prior variance or special permit, anything ever issued by a prior board?
No, not that I could find
Okay.
in the town records.
Hey, Dennis, did you have a question?
I just want to know, is there a deed, would we know the actual square footage? So what's telling us of the square footage of the lot?
We were basing the lot size on the assessors.
Just assessor's records? Okay. And just to get from you, would you consider this like an illegal 4-family at this point?
At this time, it's an unpermitted 4-family. There's been correspondence between the town and the homeowner that dates back, from what I can understand, I believe into the late 90s. There's been on and off correspondence, either due to lack of follow-through through the town's part or follow up on the owner's part. There was never actually anything that got brought to a head as far as a zoning meeting or any type of orders being issued to the homeowner to say, you need to do this or else, or this needs to be brought into compliance. It was basically, you have a situation that's out of compliance, do something to rectify it, and then nothing was ever followed up on to tell them what they needed to do to rectify it, or the owner never contacted the town to say, what do I need to do to rectify it? So there was several letters back and forth, but nothing was ever said, you need to do this to make the situation better. I was brought into this situation, they made known about it. As I was able to read through the process and figure out what was going on, basically all the letters that were written, since there was no follow-through and the time lapse had happened between hand, just needed to start fresh. The only thing that those letters basically allowed me to do was say that the town's known about it, we recognized it, so therefore it doesn't meet the grandfathered status of a non-conforming use being in existence for this long without any knowledge. So that's the only thing that those letters basically allowed me to do, was say the town knew about it, so therefore you're not considered a grandfathered use. So at this point, I informed them that they are in violation of the zoning bylaw, which requires a special permit for a multifamily, and then I gave them their options of what needed to be done.
So this situation has been in dispute since 2009,
Since before that.
and it is the town's position now that it is not an approved four-family.
Yes.
And that is stated in the correspondences, that it is the town's position that it is not a legal four-family,
Correct, in the
and
letter.
that has been the statement all along.
Yes. There has been statements made that, and now it wasn't originally a four-family. It first started out as and to hash through the history would take days. So I'm trying to give a brief overview. It originally started out as, I believe, it was a single family, and then it started out with servants' quarters that were essentially an in-law apartment, and then it became a three-family with a third apartment being added on, and then eventually there was a fourth apartment that was in there. I believe at one time they had up to 5 units in there at some point. So there's been a lot of back and forth going on with this property that, like I said, I tried to read through it. I tried to figure out what orders were being issued, what was being done here, but there was just never any continuity between what was being issued, what was being requested.
We have copies of those letters in a file to refer to, where it is stated unequivocally that it is not a permitted use.
Yes.
Okay.
Nick, did you have a chance to look at the premises in terms of life safety?
Yes.
'Cause it looks like it's a pretty high structure there, an older building.
Yes, I actually had the opportunity to walk through the property with the applicant. There were some items that I identified as safety issues for being a four-family. When I met with the applicant, we went through, I pointed out what those safety issues were. The applicant has addressed those issues. So at this point in time, while it is not zoning allowed to be a four-family, it is satisfactory building safe to be a four-family. We have the required amount of smoke detectors. We have the required amount of smoke detectors. We have the proper means of egress there. I've seen letters going back and forth that people make comments about the egress. I am well aware of what constitutes a second means of egress. And we have made the conditions so that they have the proper means of egress for each apartment. We've made identifications for fire extinguishers. We've put emergency lighting throughout the building, so we have brought it up to code for the safety measures.
Bob, did you have a question?
I have some concerns I'd like to raise if I could. Granted, with the history of the property that we've already briefly discussed, the letter that was submitted by the attorney has no contact information on it. There is no letterhead, for that matter. Whether or not this individual is actually an attorney, I have no idea, but I'd like to at least have some contact information and some letterhead. And as far as the proxy, I believe that would have to be notarized. before anybody can represent someone else, considering he may not necessarily be the legal owner of the property?
I think he was
In a court, maybe, but I think we've had, you can be a petitioner for
Okay.
without being the owner.
And you said you have heat and smoke detectors in the
Yes.
building now?
Yep.
Okay. And overall, you think the building is in fair condition? What's your opinion of that?
Yes, it was actually very well and upkept when I walked there. Each of the units was in a tidy and kept manner. There wasn't trash or debris out in the open. The pathways and egress through the different hallway channels were clear and open. There wasn't any excess buildup in any of the common areas. No, I didn't see any safety issues.
Rick, did you have any concerns at all?
Yeah, what about parking?
They have an adequate number of parking spaces. The requirement for a four-family would be 8 parking spaces. They have enough spaces in the front, I believe, to park 4 cars, and then they have an additional area in the back where they can fit 6, I believe.
Dennis?
Just a little history on it, because I actually remember this house when I used to do real estate appraising way back, and I think I did this once as a single family. Do you know, are there 4 kitchens?
Yes.
There are 4 kitchens. Were there building permits when each kitchen was put in, or were they just put in?
I do not know.
You would have.
The records for certain things that were done, there could have been permits pulled. Our records don't go back.
This would have been probably within the last 10 years, so.
Yeah, we don't have any records for anything within the last 10 years.
Okay.
Megan, did you have anything?
I don't think so. Nothing additional.
I would like to ask the petitioner, in order to grant a variance, there are certain criteria that we must satisfy by law. Now, the criteria are, one would be, the topography of the land and so forth. If that had a direct connection that would cause a hardship or not, albeit that we're all very sympathetic to them always, personal or financial hardships are not necessarily considered in determining a hardship for a variance. And my question to you would be, you are coming to us for a variance, and I'm going to use the word reason with the reasons for, and I'm going to use that in a synonymous manner with what would be the hardship that you would be saying has been established or would be established if you were not granted this variance.
Yes, the hardship will be, there's 4 families living in the dwelling, including my own family. I have 2 little kids, my sister with 2 little kids, and another family, 4-member family. So the hardship will be for all of us to be forced to leave.
We can't really tie that in with a soil, shape, or topography issue. And that would not be able to be tied in to grant a variance. And as far as the size of the lot, I believe Massachusetts law pretty much states that the size of the size is not considered reason for variance, and unless it can be related to one of the other things that I just mentioned, the soil conditions, topography, or something like that. And I understand your personal situation, but there's no way to tie that in to legally grant you a variance from what I can see.
And what Larry was referring to is that the town's bylaws, they set the criteria of how many units are allowed based on the lot size. So in order for us to grant a variance, we're pretty much saying that we're not going to go by the town's bylaws, so then we have to write a written decision to support it. So then we'd have to come up with a reason, why do we feel that property deserves an exception to the bylaws, and it has to relate to something with the lot or the soil conditions. So we'd have to come up with a way, like, why does the property meet a hardship, and with nothing to do with the financial reasons. So that's sort of our struggle of coming up, like, why do we feel that it deserves it? Because we got to treat every property the same, because then the next applicant comes in, and although we may want to grant the variance, we can't, like, grant this one and not do the next one. So we're trying to be more fair, and I think that's what we're all struggling with right now.
To the audience.
At this time, unless anyone else has anything to say, for right now, what I can do is I can open it up to the audience, anyone that wants to speak. And if you could, I'm sorry.
I just have one question. In the past, what was the town looking for them to do?
To be quite honest with you, I couldn't figure it out. That's why I said we just need to start from scratch, because the letters that went back and forth basically said you have a condition that's not allowed by the bylaws, but it doesn't say vacate the premises, it doesn't say apply for a variance, it doesn't say apply for a special permit, it just says you're non-conforming, you're doing something outside the bylaws, and
No details.
That was it.
Okay.
And there's no conditional approval that.
Right.
And,
Basically, those square footage would allow up to a two-family. I mean,
Right.
technically, the issue would be kitchens, because you can have X amount of bedrooms,
Yeah.
2 kitchens, basically, so.
I don't believe it was ever even licensed as anything but a single family, though, correct?
Correct.
So that in itself would be something that would have to be a permit.
Right, but you can legally have a two-family.
Correct.
With the
Right.
lot size, it's just, at that point, it's no longer, it would be special permit on that.
and it looks like we have a lot of people here, so how about if you could come up one at a time, and don't be nervous. If you could just come up to the microphone, just give us your name and address, and,
Should I sit down?
yes, please, yeah, if you could.
Hello, my name's David Carson. I live at 200 Leicester Street, which is directly next door to the house in question, with my wife Jean Marie, who's sitting here, and all my neighbors that also joined us. So we've been at 200 Leicester Street for 26 years, and for most of that time, David and Ann Baker lived there, and it was a single-family house. When they started moving people into the house, we started contacting the town with our concerns. Our kids were young at that time, and we wanted to make sure that this was legal and all that. So people came to check the house, and the records are sketchy, as we understand, but it really started to become a major concern more recently in the past 5-6 years, when they tried to sell the house as a multifamily, and we brought it back to the building inspector at that time, Don Miller, wrote a cease and desist order that we have a copy of here, and I believe you should have copies of it as well, telling them that it was a single-family house and there were no permits issued for any of these rooms that they built. So that's huge to me. So anyways, in looking at the application, we came up with some rebuttals. The Bakers officially knew since 2009 that the apartments were not rightfully constructed or zoned, as no permits or applications were ever filed. They could have sold it as a single-family house at any time, so that goes to the financial hardship. They led the proxy to believe that, led him down the path by accepting money towards owning the home, that they knew they had done all of this against the law. And again, we've been raising this concern over and over for many, many years with the town, and the town really hasn't done much to support us on this. Obviously, they didn't follow any legal process and allowed tenants to move into the house. They ignored the cease and desist order that Donald Miller put out in 2009 that declared it a single-family home and that the apartments were not approved. The Bakers were given 30 days to appeal and chose to ignore the order and continued renting apartments for 4 years before filing this variance. Chapter 10, Section 5 clearly states that it is unlawful to construct, alter, or change the class of an occupancy of any building or structure without first filing with the Inspector of Buildings. And it becomes real personal for me at this point because my life savings is in my house, and I went through all the proper permits to build an addition on my house and kind of based it, made the decision based on there was this big house next door and a lot of smaller houses in the neighborhood, and I really believed that by upgrading my house, I could get the value back, and I don't feel that as a rental unit next door. So I'd like to give some time to my other neighbors.
Thank you.
I'm Robert Hunter. I'm at 192 Leicester Street in a butter. And one of the things that I have on it is they put the parking lot in the back of the building, and it's adequately, it holds maybe 8 cars. But what they didn't do is they didn't do any kind of survey to find out about water runoff. And what's happening is the water is running off of that parking lot down the driveway, and it's tearing up the lawns along the Carson's property, and also it runs across the street, and my son lives across on 195 Leicester Street. The water is going across Leicester Street, over into his driveway, and down over the lawn, and he has approximately a 2-foot ditch made by the excess water running down. So I believe that parking area should not be there. That's mainly what I got.
Thank you.
How you doing? I'm Brian Horn. I live at 198 Leicester Street, which is at the top of the hill behind 196. My property runs all the way down to Leicester Street, which we share a right-of-way driveway, which is on my property. We had to sign off with the Bakers, giving them access to use the driveway when I bought the house, which was about 10 years ago. That was for a single family. Now we have 4 families living in there on my property. They're driving up the driveway, causing wear and tear, excess traffic. It's a liability to me and my family if something ever happens with one of the tenants there, if there's ever an accident or anything like that. That's my biggest concern.
One of the vehicles was actually me going to take a look at the property.
Sure, a lot of people have.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that?
My name's Alan Weigel. I live at 198A Leicester Street. That's right behind the Baker's house. And my concern is the security now with four more apartments, and basically everybody knows you. And I just see who knows what's coming in and out of there. I know back in 2011, they arrested a gentleman with for heroin, and he was sent to the House of Correction. So I mean, I don't know who's there, when they're there, what's there. We're on a dead end. So you've got to kind of keep your eyes open. I've been there 37 years, and you would not believe the vehicles that have come up that hill. So,
Thank you.
Good afternoon, evening. Name is Joe Morrissey, 207 Leicester Street. Got a letter in the mail from the zoning board. I have one question for you folks. I know it's been kind of reiterated. am I to the understanding that there shouldn't be a building constructed more than 2 stories in the town of Auburn? Is there something about that?
There's a height regulation, I
Height
believe
regulation.
25 feet.
Now, this mentions the vehicle, I mean, the address in question is 196 Leicester Street. Now, that's from the street, correct? The front door would be facing towards the street? There
believe
is no
so.
front door facing towards that street, and if you look at from the street, the height of this piece of property has got to be close to 5 stories high from the street.
The height of the building was not something that was added on to. The height of the building is something that is actually an existing nonconformity. The height is not a question on this matter.
Why would that be?
That's an existing nonconformity. That height's been there since the building's been built.
So when that is my understanding, that house was a ranch,
It was added.
was it not?
Oh, really?
It was a 3-bedroom ranch that was added on to, added back to, added up to, added up to. If you're standing from the street and looking from the street, my God, that thing is higher than the cupola of this town hall, is looking at it from the street.
I was going to say, the records that I have on that, going back the 15 years that this has been going
Yeah.
on, doesn't make any reference.
And again,
to
this
it going
is
up.
no fault of the planning board or anything else, but I think probably part of the problem is we're not trying to tell people you can't build like an in-law apartment, but clearly this has been something that's been added on and added on with the intention that, well, worst comes to worst, I'll just make into apartments later on when I leave town. That's what it seems to have been the case in this particular manner. This fella added on so much to the house, he made it into a white elephant, he couldn't sell it. Now he wants to rent it, which is fine, but he's got to go to the planning board in order to do that. And we as neighbors don't feel that that property has the size and the dimensions to host 4 families. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else want to? Come, I know you want to say something.
Covers everything. We're just concerned that you may set a bad precedent now for granting something.
Oh, could we just have your name and address?
Jean Marie Carson at 200 Leicester.
It's David's wife.
And we're just worried that you might set a bad precedent now for the town of Auburn by granting permission for something that's been going on illegally for so many years.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
I'd like to follow up on what Joe was talking about as far as the house. Originally, Berthium owned that house, and he built it in 1960, and I was living right across the street at the time. It was just a ranch, and when Dave Baker took it over, he just kept on adding on. He added on the front section, and he added on the floor in the back. It's actually 3 stories high. Talk about the original floor where the Berthiums had, and then there's a dining room on the second floor, and then a ballroom on the top. I've been in the building, I used to know Dave well. He used to brag about how he was able to do all of this in the evenings.
Thank you. Does the applicant want to say any other comments at all? Do you have anything based on what the residents say? Do you want to make any other comments?
Anyone else?
Or anyone else?
Oh, really, if anybody has any concerns, any illegal activities going on at the place, there's no such thing happening. The police can verify the truth, like I said. Other than that, it's up to the board to decide what needs to be done.
Does the board, any other board members have any questions at all? Any? Okay, I'll take a motion. Oh, yes.
Well, I was just wondering if you want to take the variance first.
Oh, that's right, yeah. So I'll take a motion. You want to close the public hearing, or?
It's up to you.
Yeah.
I'll take a motion. Second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So let's take it in 2, since the variance is the biggest one. So the applicant's request, well, the variance that we have here is the lot currently sits as 20,400 square feet, as a 4-unit building, they're required to have 40,000 square feet according to the bylaws. So we'd have to grant the variance to allow, to have a smaller lot size. So,
Motion?
is there a motion?
I'll make a motion, actually, to deny.
Second.
I'll second.
Any comments or anyone wants to make on?
The motion is to deny the variance.
I see no hardship, so.
Yeah, we really, I don't think we see any hardships on it. So we got a second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So it's unanimous?
Yes.
The special permit kind of goes away, but well, we
Yeah.
can,
Yes.
I just want to make a question on the special permit if I could. Now, this special permit is strictly just for a 4-family, not a multifamily special permit, it's just for the 4 specifically, correct?
Well, it's,
So if they go for a 2...
correct, because the way that we have the classification in the zoning is we have a single family, a 2-family, and then family
Okay.
for 3 units or more.
Okay, I'll make a motion to deny the special permit for the 4-family then.
Second.
Now, all in favor?
Aye.
So I'm sorry, but we, based on the information and all the public comments, we just couldn't find that you met the criteria to grant either a variance or a special permit.
There's a process of appeal, right?
You have 20 days, once it gets filed, once it's filed with the clerk, you still have 20 days to appeal.
Okay, I'll take a, no, I always forget, let's take a motion to close this one.
Motion to close the hearing?
Second?
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we're running a little late, so we have, so we have a 7:15 applicant, Stephen Gallant, requesting a special permit under section 3.2.2.5 of the Auburn zoning bylaws for residential and business use of property located at 11 Southwood Street in Auburn, Mass. Hello, Mr. Gallant. Hi. So we got your application, and you look familiar, so I think we've seen you before.
I was here at the last meeting.
So I think the board has a pretty good idea from the last meeting. So I'll take a motion. Did we do the motion to open the hearing?
Yeah, this is a new hearing.
Yeah. Yes.
Motion to open the hearing?
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. So, Mr. Gallant, we got your application for the special permit. Has the board had a chance to read through the applicant's? And then, so what we have is, I think the last meeting, we looked at whether it could fit under the special permit criteria. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant?
A lot of these in the area, so
Yeah.
it's in the neighborhood.
Absolutely.
It looks like a single-family home.
Yes.
It's not going to alter it in any way.
Right. And I think when we met last time, we kind of talked about the benefit of a special permit is it's tied just for this applicant. So when the applicant eventually moves, if they do move someday, then
Special permit's gone.
the special permit would be gone, so.
So we are going to tie it to the applicant himself.
Yes, and I think we, and I don't think, Mr. Gallant, you wouldn't have a problem if we make a condition that the special permit is just for your occupancy, for you.
I don't have a problem with that.
Okay. Yes.
I have a question. Chair?
Oh, maybe just for the record, could you just give us?
Mark Knopf, Town Meeting, Precinct 4.
Okay.
I have a couple of questions here, concerns.
Sure.
Number one, could we put a sign? That is at the intersection of Drum Ave and Southwick Street, my precinct.
Actually, Mr. Gallant, I think he's, so the resident wants to know, do you plan on putting any signs up for your business at the address?
I hadn't, I hadn't planned on it, but there's a frame for a sign on the lawn already. I don't do any work at that location. All my work is at people's houses. So my business, you know, I think it's what, highway business? So I believe.
There's also new bylaws sign in town too.
There's what?
New bylaw on the signs in town. That's a very busy intersection there. A lot that's going on there.
And Mark, he would know, that so if he was going to put a sign up bigger than the bylaw, he would know to contact the town for another special permit. So, and when we met last time, he doesn't anticipate having no customers are going to be coming to his lot. It's going to be more just to live there and then to park his vehicles in the back. So there won't be a lot of activity other than just having a...
Drainage, there is a big drainage problem down there too. There's a drainage, actually starts from Willow Street, goes all the way around, and then Drum Ave too. The drainage system there.
Yeah, I mean where he is though, he's not up the hill. So.
Actually, it butts it. He's a butter to it. The property goes right there.
Right. I mean, I don't think he's
There's
going
a very large parking lot in the back. It's all existing. And I don't plan on, I don't have any hazardous material. All I have is lawn cutting machines and trucks.
Yeah, I know there's a problem with reporting. It has been passed.
Well, I don't know who, it's not going to affect me. I don't know. I'm not causing anything.
Just want to make sure you have enough fill. There's quite some drainage system down there. Some kind of open sewage down there. So that's actually touching Elm Street, really. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Dennis, did you want to ask?
Yeah, I mean, just for equipment, it's just landscaping equipment?
Yeah.
Okay, so...
I have a couple of box trucks, you know, regular 16-foot rental type trucks, and about 3 trailers, landscaping trailers, and a small dump truck, pickup truck.
Storing any chemicals or anything, fertilizers?
I don't store anything. If I'm gonna do a fertilization, I go pick up the material and go do it right from there.
What time do you usually start? What time would you be usually starting these trucks up in the morning?
7:30, 8 o'clock. My men usually come in at 8 o'clock.
And you currently live at 28 Coolidge Street?
Yeah.
So you're selling and moving, or?
Yeah, we sold the house, so we're moving, and we're downsizing our lifestyle. We just want to rent.
Megan, did you have a question?
Yes, through the chair, just quickly, I know we talked about there is a lot in the back, but there is enough room in the lot for the equipment that you do have? Nothing needs to be parked on the street or anything? There's plenty of room for the...
It'll all fit.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, one quick thing.
Yes.
Could you make a condition that this, start at 8 a.m.? There is a residence area too, There are neighbors, houses in that area, in the residential area.
That's why I asked what time the trucks would be starting.
Well, it's listed as business. It's business, isn't it?
Highway business and,
I mean,
garage.
That's why I
across
wanted
the
to
street
ask
in
it
the
to be
corner.
sure.
I mean, if it's business, that's why this is a good
That's right.
location for us.
If you can hear it past the Polo trucks.
Yeah. Mark, did you hear what the board had mentioned? It's already a highway business.
I know it's going, it's like 1,000 feet in.
Yeah.
I just, it's something I represent, that's all.
Yeah.
Using for.
No, we appreciate that.
No one has to come, I just come on my own.
Any abutters here on this topic? Yes, ma'am, if you could maybe come up to the mic, just give us your name and address.
Maureen Dubois, I'm at 15 and 19 Southbridge Street. I pretty much own the biggest residential piece of property in that block. I was unable to make the last meeting, but I did watch it repeatedly. What I was very surprised at was the inaccuracy in some of the information that was coming out with respect to this house. I guess the most troubling thing to me is that the current owner is a realtor. He applied for a variance to get that house turned from residential property to run his real estate business out of that house.
No, he didn't apply for a variance.
Yes, he did.
No, he didn't.
Yes, he did. We came to the meetings. He applied for a variance. We were notified, we came to the meeting. There was a condition in his variance that he were not to be parking. The vehicle parking was a problem originally, because when he took over the house, when he purchased the house, he used to have he had a large number of realtor people working for him. That's why that backyard is now paved, because he was parking all his cars on the street and blocking my gate at the back of my yard. So that was a condition of his variance, that he not park on the streets. That's why that backyard is paved.
He had a zoning change, right?
That's right. He applied for a variance to run his real estate business out of that house, and he was granted the variance. Now that he received his variance, from listening to this board at the last meeting, it's my understanding that he now cannot rent that house as residential property. Well, that's exactly what he's been doing for the past several years. As soon as the real estate market tanked, his business, everybody was out of a job.
It wasn't a variance, 'cause Nick, I know you kind of outlined the transaction in the last meeting.
It may have been an aquifer or something like that, but there wasn't a variance. It's highway business. It's an allowed use. If it's an
allowed by right
you
use,
don't need a variance. So even if there was granted, he never needed one to have a business there.
And I've been on the board 5 years, and I know that property, and I've never seen it.
But I believe it was the type of business, because it was a real estate business, that is why he needed the variance. It was the type of business that was going in there that required the variance.
Dennis has been on board 16 years. He's got a...
He was allowed by right. I think the only real change in the whole issue was with the assessors. It basically changed it from a commercial, so they were able, instead of him being taxed as a single family, they changed it over, so he was actually using it was a single family home that he was using as a business, and he was actually being taxed as a business, hence the change at the assessor's office. And that's where that came in. He was allowed by right to have that business in that zone, so there was no variance that was required, and I think he withdrew with that at that meeting. So he first applied, but he didn't need to, so it was basically withdrawn, I believe.
I went to the meeting. We spoke at the meeting.
Yeah, but he was allowed by right. It wasn't something that even required a variance. I think the issues were with, later, it was a classification issue with the town as far as taxation, actually.
Even still, from listening to this board at the previous meeting, you made it clear that he now can no longer rent that as a residential.
Correct.
Well, that's exactly what he's been doing for several years now.
Well,
to this day. There's a resident in that house to this day, right tonight.
Well, that was, nobody brought it to our attention to let me know that it was incorrect, so that I could take action on it.
Here's my problem, in this previous case is a perfect example. Where is the oversight? Who's responsible for oversight? Is it the abutter's responsibility to make sure that their neighbors are all in compliance and doing what they're supposed to be doing?
You could report them, there's no question.
If there is a concern, then yes, I accept
But the
as much help
problem
as I
is
can
that
get.
as a resident, as a neighbor, we have no way of knowing that he's not in compliance. He knows he was not in compliance. He's a realtor. He knew exactly what he was doing. And he knows exactly what he is doing now. It's my understanding that this gentleman is looking to purchase this property. And that's what concerns me. What concerns me is a couple of things. Number one, if this house is sold, then this gentleman has to pack up and move his business and his personal stuff out, and then only another business can come in there. Why is it not the property owner's responsibility that he has to rent his property and sell his property in compliance?
It is his responsibility. The reason why we're even here right now is because the gentleman that's representing the owner right now for this application came in and asked what he needed to do in order to use the property as his business and dwelling. We have a provision for that in our zoning ordinance, which he is requesting permission from the zoning board for. What was going on previously is unfortunate, but if there was something there, concerns, that's why I'm here. If there are concerns, people can bring their concerns to me, and then I can investigate those. If I find that there is something that is out of compliance, then that's my job to notify the people and to have that corrected. I try and do the best I can, but we have 16,000 residents in the town and over 600 businesses. It's difficult to see everything that's going on. I appreciate as much help as I can get, and I do try and investigate as many complaints as I do get and as many concerns.
Okay, so I have a couple more questions. Should this gentleman purchase this house, instead of, he might get in there and rent it for 2 months and then all of a sudden decide, oh, I want to buy this house? You're saying that if he's granted this special permit, then when the house is sold, that special permit goes away?
Right.
Does that mean if he becomes the new owner, does he have to come back before this board again and ask for another special permit in order to reside in that location? Or is he going to have to essentially vacate the residence?
Are we granting, may I ask the board, is the board granting the special permit to the business that's going in there?
It would be to his lease.
Yeah, I think that's what is that what we kind of talked about? We want to tie it to his lease rental of the property? Is that- that's-
Well, I think that we have to make a decision based on the information that we have provided in front of us, not on the potential for future use
Right.
that we're speculating on. It's really what we consider to be a rumor or even hearsay evidence. It really isn't something that we can address.
Right.
We have to make our decision based on the information that we have in front of us. If he decides that he's going to possibly buy the property in 2 years from now, well, that's something we can't foresee into the future, and we'll have to address that issue at the time. So we have to make our decision based on what we have here.
So now the parking there and the number of vehicles and the size of the vehicles, does that fit? Because I have to agree with Mr. Brunel, I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but I do agree. This area down here has gotten so bad, and I have been to the town numerous times. I have been to the DOT. There's public safety issues, there's quality of life issues. I think he's going to be very surprised. Number one, if he thinks he's going to sleep at night, he can just kiss that goodbye, because that's not going to happen. Number two, getting those trucks in and out of that parking lot, even though it's big, he basically taken up the whole street. That Jerome Ave and Southbridge Street area is treacherous. So I know I have a trailer, and my son has a big truck, and we can't get that trailer out of our gate without taking up the entire street. So now he's going to have big box trucks backing up, hooking up trailers, pulling them out.
Yes, Dennis.
The thing on this one, he's here because he wants to put a partially residential in there. It's already have that business aspect to it. So with the trucks, I mean, he could have all that landscaping equipment all he wants because it's already been decided that it was a commercial business. He's here for residential. He's actually going to take part of that and keep that as residential. So I think there's a potential for less of that could be in there, since part of that building now will be residential. And to a couple other points, I mean, he came proactively to us, so it was really good. And as far as the building inspector is concerned, without any physical change to the building, he doesn't know what goes inside. So yeah, it would be, if residents know something is going on, then you would report it. So otherwise, the building looks exactly the same. He doesn't go into buildings to see what's actually going on inside, unless there's some circumstance. The building hasn't been changed, and he's looking again, he already has the commercial aspect legal. It's now just for the residential part that he's looking for.
Okay. And there'll be no oil changes, and, I mean, that stuff needs to be maintained. Lawnmowers need oil changes, all that kind of stuff. what's he gonna be doing with that stuff?
Well, I think, like we said, it's already legally, business can be transacted there. So if that's part of his business, he's not here asking us to allow him to do that. He already is allowed to do that. So I think we can't make a ruling or restrict anything in regard to the business because he's already allowed to transact business there. He could run his business out of there and continue to live at Coolidge Street if that's what he wanted to do and still rent that space for his business. So anything in regard to the business, we don't really have the authority to change or make any restrictions on. Our only decision is, can he live there?
And if the business goes away, then he can't live there. If his business goes under, if he goes bankrupt, then he can no longer live in that house.
Well, he could still live there because if we grant him a permit, it'd be a special permit for him personally. So he would still be able to live there. He could not rent it to someone else who wasn't granted the special permit.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other?
Just like to make a comment.
Yes, sir.
I just want to assure you that I'm a good neighbor. I've lived in Auburn for 45 years, actually longer. I've lived here all my life, but I've lived at my present address for 45 years. We're moving because the house is too big, our kids are gone. We need a smaller house. And that was one of the few places that we could go into that had a parking space, big enough and have a house. We're very mindful of the neighbors. We live in a neighborhood now. We don't plan on changing anything.
My issue really is small he has been blatantly non-compliant for several years now. And he's fully aware of it. He's aware of it. He knew what he was supposed to be doing now.
I'm asking for now, though, not what's past.
I really don't necessarily have an issue. Yeah, I mean, all the trucks are going to be nice for him, and he continues to be a lot worse. I think he's going to be very surprised. I can give you, I've got 120 years at my location. My property goes back to my husband's family for 120 years. So we've been there longer than anybody, so I'm fully aware of everything. Like I said, my issue is with the current owner, blatantly non-compliant for several years. And like this group prior to us, it just doesn't seem right. It's all too common that people just do things and get away with it, and then when you report it to the town does nothing.
Well, like we said, though, this applicant was proactive coming before the board, doing the right thing, so I think he definitely deserves a fair chance as a neighbor.
I do believe that is all changing. When you report
Right.
something, I believe it gets looked at. There's been major changes.
The same way with the issues that we have down there, because nothing's being done down there. I think you're going to be very surprised when you get into a lot of issues that you're going to be faced with. You're going to be in for a big eye opener, to be perfectly honest with you.
I'll make a motion.
Attest to that. I mean, we've been battling for a long time.
No, I know you have. Okay, thank you. And, but now you know the building inspector too, so now you can put a name with a face. So I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing?
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll take a motion on Mr.
Motion to
Gallant's-
grant the special permit?
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion?
Discussion
Sure.
on conditions?
Conditions as to the term of lease of the applicant, not Mr., the applicant actually is Mr. Gallant. That's who we want to condition it with his term of his lease.
Okay. Any other conditions?
I don't think so. I think that's good. Good with that?
Okay, so, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, so, Mr. Gallant, so we approve that, so you can check with Nick on, the time, how long it takes, the timing, and I believe there's, 20-day appeal period.
Motion to
Thank you.
close the hearing?
Oh, wait, I always forget that. Motion to close the hearing?
He did it.
Oh, did we?
Motion?
Larry, we already
closed
closed
before
it.
the vote.
We closed before.
We'll close it a second.
We'll close it a second time, so.
Okay,
all
that's
in
right.
favor?
Make sure it's closed.
Really slim it.
I know. Okay, so we have a 7:30, now we're a little behind, but applicant Town of Auburn requesting a special permit under section 4.3.5.1 of the bylaws, rendering 15% or greater of the lot impervious on property at 57 West Street, also known as 780 Southwood Street. I'll take a motion to open the hearing.
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Continuation, I think, right? Yeah.
Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Good evening. So we're going to kind of, break it into two sections. First, the impervious, and then we can do the height and the parking. Just because, make sure we kind of understand it. So before you start, so where we are, we continued it from the last hearing, and we received the updated letter from Graves with their responses to the, I believe it was 23 points.
Right.
And before I know it looked like, kind of looking at it, and you can give us an update, but it looked like most of them were addressed, but it looked like the one on the flood, point 1 and 15 seemed to be open, so maybe if you could maybe build that into your discussion as well in terms of updates.
Yeah, that was really the only item that was left open, and that was because the disposition of the floodplain is determined by the Conservation Commission, and at the last hearing that we had, we discussed that issue based on the information that we had presented to Mr. Walsh. They had some discussion on that, and they approved our application with indication of our floodplain at elevation 613, which was consistent with the material that we had sent in for peer review. And again, Mr. Walsh concurred with the calculations and the argument that we presented on that fact. He left it open for the commission because he wasn't authorized to approve or disapprove, quote unquote. But the issue's been resolved as a result of the conservation hearing.
Okay.
The remaining technical issues that Mr. Walsh had identified have been all addressed in the materials. There was one additional very minor item. There's a pipe invert that needed to be adjusted. It's kind of an incidental item that's being addressed in the current construction document set that's been prepared.
Did any board members have any questions for?
Is there anything, I mean, I think you're still going through planning board, right?
Correct.
So would anything, they'll address anything that's in here? Anything going back with Walsh on that?
On the traffic and the site plan and...
And Nick, did you have any questions on this?
No, at this time, they've satisfied all the drainage requirements that would be conditioned for the aquifer requirements. They've satisfied Graves. As far as the town professionals, we don't have additional concerns at this point that would change the design on the plan at all, so, satisfied.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like from the impervious piece, all the, 23 points seem to be addressed. And there's good synergy with planning and conservation in terms of all the flood issues and the site plan. Bobby Click, you have something you want to say there?
No, actually, I'm satisfied with everything as you just mentioned.
Anyone else, any comments?
If not, I'll make a motion to grant.
Yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry, any public?
Is this part of the parking pilot, or?
That's going to be
No,
next.
that's
That's the next one?
Yeah. We're older, so we got to kind of do one at a time. We can't balance them all.
I was a little confused.
No, they were two separate filings, so this
Yeah.
is actually, this part is a continuation of the last meeting.
Okay, so I will take a motion should we close the public hearing on this one?
You can do it either here now or later. Doesn't matter.
Okay. Is there I'll take a motion then on the variance for the aquifer. And,
I think it's a special permit.
I'm sorry. That's why we take them, you're right, I'm sorry, you're right, yeah, special permit on the aquifer. I'll take a motion, and Dennis made the motion to.
Motion to grant the impervious as shown on the plans and with the updated notes from Graves.
Second.
And then, any conditions such as the standard aquifer conditions.
Can we get the date?
And the stipulation, as you said, as shown.
I'm sorry. Plans. And can we have a date on your latest plans?
Yeah, there's actually a plan issue that just went out today,
Okay.
Which was the most current set. This is a controlled construction project that's going to have probably another couple of issues of documents issued as addenda to the project as the project goes along. So, hopefully there's some vehicle that we can include in the conditions that would allow those plans to proceed. There will be no more augmentations to the storm drainage system specifically. The additional addenda items were pertained mainly to just miscellaneous construction details and.
Nothing on the impervious, because that's what we hear. Okay.
No.
Do you want to, should we mention any, as the plans?
I mean, I guess that if I might suggest, the easiest thing to do might be just to use the date of the drawings that Mr. Walsh reviewed, which are listed in his letter.
Okay.
That was the last official set that was submitted for this application, so.
There were new ones on the 6th.
Oh, yep.
Oh, okay, so January 6th. Engineering.
Yep.
And since it's just for the impervious, whatever they do as construction-wise, they'll be dealing with that with the planning board.
And then all the aquifer conditions, and I think there was mention about, and I think there was something about the building inspector about use of fertilizers on the site. So their standard aquifer conditions would apply.
Yeah, that, we can attach the aquifer conditions to our proposal here for what we're doing on there. So I would also, on that, make sure the aquifer conditions apply.
And to the chair, you said January 5th?
Oh, I'm sorry, did I say the 6th? Oh, the 6th, January 6th.
And that was for?
The date of the plans that Graves Engineering reviewed.
And if it could also include that it refers to the drawing as of December 20?
Is that
Do we have here the plans?
Oh, December the 20th, so I think
Yeah.
Larry's.
And documents on that.
Oh, okay, and documents. Correct. So the plans and documents. Thank you, Larry. And then the aquifer conditions, there's 13 sort of standard ones, ones that really apply, use of fertilizer, chemicals on snow and ice control, and I know that was mentioned in Graves' letter. And that's sort of like a standard attaching those conditions in the aquifer region.
Just to be clear on the plan was changed, right? The original, the one we have with the plans, I believe, do we have those plans that they show the underground recharge in there? Or that was something that was, I don't think we got those plans or were there. I just want to make sure we refer to the right plans.
Correct. The ones that we have in our packet are not the latest plans that Graves reviewed. The ones that Graves reviewed do show the underground detention and do show the...
Okay.
So I don't know if we should add those old plans because they're not relevant. Right.
If I can,
We don't have, are the copies of the, except for the water situation, do we have copies of the plans that are substantially different, or any different than what we're looking at right here?
They are different. The stormwater system is not changed. However, if I can just make one comment on that front. We're going through the simultaneous permitting for planning board, zoning board of appeals, and conservation. And what our goal has been along through this process is to leave an option for all three boards to receive the final
bid documents for the project. So all boards all have the same drawings. There are no multiple copies of plans with different dates. So that's, I'm not sure how we get there in terms of the approval in a condition, if possible, but that's been our goal, and the other two boards have been working with us to that end. Just because the plan set's fairly large, they get split up, people get copies of different dated drawings, and it can get very confusing very quickly. So we've just been kind of waiting till all the reviews are done, so we can issue one set of drawings to everybody. That'll be in the public record.
Graves.
And Dennis had a good point. If we will, we're making a condition, it's based on the plans and documents reviewed and approved by Graves on January 6, 2014. So Graves, they're representing us for a peer review, so they reviewed all the construction documents with the underground. So that's probably about as good as we can get. I mean, because even if we get a set, if we said give us a set of documents, it's probably going to change a little bit anyways, but Graves is we're going to require what was reviewed and approved on January 6th.
So if there's any substantial change, we're going to have to revisit this.
Yeah, and they wouldn't, I mean, I can't see them.
The only substantial change would be towards the 15% above impervious, so
right.
That's not going to change.
Right.
It might be some construction changes in the building, but the impervious.
We're far enough along the design process that that's not going to happen at this point.
There's no space on the lot to put above ground
right.
drainage, whatever. I mean, there's like no, we'll see that in the next hearing. Okay, so I believe we got a second?
Mm-hmm.
And then, so all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we got one done.
Close this hearing?
Oh, so I'll take a motion to close?
Motion to close.
A second? All in favor?
Aye.
Now we have to open the meeting.
And that's why you have boards, so, because...
Now we can open another one.
And so now, put this one aside. Okay, so now, yes, sir.
Can she sit in on this one instead of just so she can vote on?
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. You wanna do it?
Oh, sure.
Switch?
I mean, I'm happy to, yeah, sure.
Okay.
And so now we have the town of Auburn again, requesting a variance under section 5.4, table 1, maximum height, and section 6.3.2.d, parking requirements of the Auburn bylaws for property located at 5 through 7 West Street, map 60, parcel 58 and 77. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. My name's Eric Moore from Lamoureux Pagano Architects. As you noted, we're requesting a variance for the two items. The first, the building height. The requirement in the building actually lies in two zoning districts, A and C. The dimensional regulation maximum height is 25 feet. The proposed building height is typically 28 feet. And that is around the academic wing here. Maximum height is approximately 36.5 feet, and that occurs right at the peak of the two entrances of this lobby here. There's a peaked skylight, so that rises up there. And then the gymnasium drops back down to 28 feet, and around this portion of the building, it's lower, about 21 feet. So the vast majority of it is 28 feet. The two relevant points. The first is the gross square footage of the building. The program area for this number of students is mandated by the MSBA, and in this case, for 560 students, it's about a little over 100,000 square feet. The parcel of land is about 15 acres, although a portion of that is wetland area. It's not entirely usable. And another portion of that lies within the 400-foot wellhead protection zone. So the
we looked at a single-story scheme, and the parcel just won't accommodate it. It doesn't physically fit on site, so we went to a two-story scheme. The second point I would make is that typical floor-to-floor at one time was probably around 25 feet. With modern building systems, the fire suppression, the types of indirect lighting, which requires higher ceilings, increased loading due to building codes, more common floor-to-floor height is 14 feet, therefore a two-story building would be in the vicinity of 28 feet. Would you like me to go on to the parking issue, or do you have questions relative to
I've got a question. I know, you say it's in two zones. Do you know where the zone?
The zone...
line goes through?
It runs, I believe it runs from West Street across. Right across this part.
Okay.
Right across here.
And which is which? To the right, is that RC or RA?
Is A and the rear is C.
Okay, so most of the building's in C.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I want. I mean, and maybe Nick, you can brush me up on this, if possible, or through the chair. We're going on this because of its two zoning districts usually go with the most restrictive? Is that what we're doing?
Correct.
Okay, because since, if it was just in Zone C, you can actually go 35 on special permit. So most of this is in 35, I mean, in Zone C. Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you're in two zones, you go in the most restricted.
Oh, right.
But it is interesting that the buildings, you can see, and they can go on.
Okay, any other questions? So we're gonna kind of like look at it first from the height of the building. So we have the request for a variance. Oh, wait a minute, yeah. Yeah, so the variance, so the height of the building, they allow 25.
Oh, one question from...
Yes, sir.
Nick, did you want to make a point? Yep.
Oh, no, I was actually going to say that the way that that's written, that 3, it's, the way that it's written, it's actually for the highway business district, for the special permit. The RC is still a 25-foot.
Okay.
It's still 25,
They would
okay.
need that anyways.
So the building, majority of the building was 28 feet roughly, and then we got the peak section when it jumps up to 36 feet. Any questions for the applicant? Larry, you got that look on your face. Like,
No.
Megan, any? Any public, anyone here from the public on this one? No?
Did we hear the hardships? I didn't know.
Oh, you're right. So so in order to grant this, we have to kind of talk about, the hardships as we go through.
I think if this is, they're asking for a variance under both of these things, so I think any vote on the variance would have to include both of these items.
It would,
so that-
yes, yep.
Yeah.
I didn't know if maybe just first kind of, we could talk about, and then we'll take one vote, but maybe just kind of talk about it separate. In terms of hardship, I know the applicant mentioned they're required to do 100,000 square feet. So then, I guess, is there a hardship based on the restriction of the lot size, the aquifer? And the reason I'm pushing too is because we have to write a decision, so.
Nick, where is that 3? Just through the chair. Where is the footnote for 3 on there?
Look in the HB line for highway business. If you go look all the way to the height, 25 with the 3 parentheses.
Okay, that basically both either in highway business and then also in RC, they need a special permit to go 35.
No, the notes are separate to what they're lined up for in the district. The table's a little bit confusing to read.
Yeah, the way they put this new table.
Yes, yeah. The notes are separate than the rest of the table.
Got it. So they put
It should have been put at the bottom.
Bottom. Very good.
Okay.
I mean, I guess in terms of potential hardships, we have the lot. We know that the size of the building is mandated by the state, so I don't know if you call that hardship, but it has to be 100,000 square feet. The lot, I mean, it's in the aquifer.
Wetlands that
It's wetlands.
dictate where a building is going to be positioned.
Where the
so-
building's going to be positioned. You could say it's a good use. I mean, there's no, let's get my cheat sheet out here.
I think, some of the things that I know that I want to address as far as the parking will also tie in with some of the same
Okay.
things for this height. Not that I'm opposed to the height situation, but some of the things that I want to talk about for the parking will tie into it.
Okay, and then when we talk
Same
about,
type of things.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments in terms of like potential hardships in terms of the height of the building? And we get the wetlands, the state mandate in terms of the size of the building. Anything about the slope of the,
Well, just the way that's laid out in the aquifer between,
Those-
flood
those-
zones and wetlands, they have to, instead of being sprawled, it has to be more compact, so you have to go up rather than.
okay.
Those issues clearly relate to the size of the lot. The fact that they have to go 2 stories versus 1, the fact that there is aquifer there, they clearly relate to the size of the lot and the relation of the lot to the water. But it's clear the size. If this lot were 50 acres bigger, and I know I'm exaggerating, 50 acres bigger, we wouldn't have to have this discussion because we could use a 1-floor school. And that issue of size is clearly by Massachusetts law not a reason to grant a variance. Now, I want to bring that up when I relate to parking also. But now, tell me I'm wrong, please.
No, the issue with size is, does he have enough square footage to use the property? And he does. The issue of how the height goes is because of what's in the ground, the aquifer, wetlands, topography, force him to now not be able to utilize the whole size that he could use legally to shrink it up and go up.
That goes to the size.
I think there's how many, 15 acres?
Just about 15 acres.
A size is not an issue, actually.
That goes to size and the aquifer. In other words, he can only go so far.
No, but size relates to dimensional variance. Say if he needed 20 acres and he only has 15 for a school, then size is an issue.
Right.
He has more than enough here, 15 acres at 43,560 square
If
feet.
he doesn't have enough, if he were putting a 1-story school in.
Sure he does.
No.
Sure.
He's
You
clearly
could put-
stated
You
that.
could put whatever you'd like on that.
He's clearly stated that he doesn't have enough size, enough area.
Due to the constraints of what's happening in the ground,
And
not
that-
physical square footage. It's not square footage issue.
When you're talking about size, the Mass State law is square footage alone. The reason why the issue for the previous permit, when they asked for the 4-family, it was 40,000 square feet, the lot size is only 20,500. That is a lot size issue.
Right.
This is not a lot size issue. You have more than enough size on this lot. Because of the topography, the condition of the lot, and this and that, the buildable size go down, but the lot size meets the proper requirements per state.
The buildable size, okay, I'm happy that you put that in, but the buildable size, okay, the buildable size of the lot is the size of the lot.
No, it's
Because
not.
we're not talking about what he can't build on, we're only talking about what he can build on.
The size of the lot is lot area. When we look at a lot and we tell you you have enough area to meet a requirement, it's the entire lot. It doesn't matter what you can use as buildable, it's your entire lot. You are then constrained by the buildable area due to the conditions on the lot. But the size of your lot grants you the use for that lot.
All right, I'll grant you.
You're constrained by how you use that lot by the buildable factors.
I'll grant you.
And
Go ahead.
notice in the aquifer, if we go up to 63% paved,
Yeah.
if we went with a one-story, then we could be up to,
Then your impervious
yeah,
changes.
yeah, and then
Okay.
it's bad for the water.
You've convinced me.
Okay, so how about on the park, do you want to maybe give us some comments on the parking?
Sure. So on the parking, the requirement for parking is based on the number of staff positions, plus one space for each 5 persons of rated capacity of the largest auditorium, plus one space for each student vehicle who can be expected at any one time. So we don't really have an auditorium, so we had to make an interpretation, and our interpretation was that, first of all, there's about 90 staff positions, so we have those 90 spaces. And while we don't have a true auditorium, we do have 2 large assembly spaces. The larger of the 2 is the gymnasium, which is designed to accommodate the entire student body for student assemblies. That will not be the space that would be used for large presentations with the public, however, so we wouldn't anticipate that would incur a great number of cars. The other space is the cafeteria, and that actually has a raised platform area that can be used as a performing area. And we looked at that space based on not tables and chairs, but just basically not fixed seating, but loose chairs, which would give us approximately an occupancy load of about 600 people in there at any one time, which equates to 120 spaces. And then because this is a middle school, obviously there are no students driving to it, we hope, and the total in our interpretation was 210 spaces. And there were 3 what we thought were relevant points. The first was that the existing middle school has less than 90 parking spaces, actually 84 parking spaces. We're almost doubling that number. There is also some potential for overflow parking when needed at the existing Randall building. There is space in front of there that could be used for parent-teacher nights and the really heavy parking need nights. The second was at the cafeteria. Even though it's an assembly space and it has a platform, we don't anticipate that would be used for the major school events. What we've been told is that the school play and the other big events are held at the high school because that has a facility with obviously greater amount of parking, but it also has a greater number of seats, fixed seats, and the ability to provide a full stage with rigging and such. The platform at this building, at the proposed middle school, will be used 95% of the time as a second music classroom. It has an operable partition that allows it to be separated from the cafeteria, and it does not have rigging or performance lighting or those sorts of features. The third relevant point is that as it noted before, the parcel of land is within 400 feet of a public water supply. We have a basically no build zone. It's back in this area here. The town well is off in this direction here, but this line more or less equates to that 400-foot radius. And we've tried to, we've made some efforts to, obviously you can see the infiltration fields on this drawing that represent the efforts made to minimize the impact of parking. So we did not want to add additional impervious surface for more parking.
What is this?
Does any board member, and I know, Rick, you played baseball up there all the time, so the old middle school, so in terms of parking,
Parking is going to be much better.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. I was the basketball coach at the middle school for years. It was atrocious. This is so much better. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Could you show me on that plan where you will be queuing the buses for children, as well as parents who are going to pick up their children?
Buses will queue along this driveway here. This is one main entrance, and this is the lobby through this part of the building. This is the back entrance. But any students arriving on buses, the buses will come in, go along this area here. There are about 7 buses in that span, and they'll come in this entrance.
And so you'll be queuing, any parents that will be dropping off children, as well as the buses in the morning, you'll be queuing them on the main road coming in?
No, but this would be designated for buses only. There's signage proposed to exclude parents from here and to direct them along this driveway here where they can queue up all the way around the back of the school to the rear of the lobby, where there's a secondary entrance and exit to the lobby. And the parents would queue up along that length, and students arriving by their parents' vehicles would enter the building at this location.
So that these areas that are marked for parking along the side will be, those areas are going to be used for parents coming in as you come around the building? If, as you come in,
Yeah, there's more because of the student.
So as you come in from West Street along here.
right,
And then the parents would take a left along here, and this would be a 24-foot wide driveway that will run around. And then when it gets to this point, there would be parking on both sides of that.
so that those cars, that's an area where you'll be queuing parents, but yet also parking cars.
It's anticipated that the parking areas along the back portion of the site will be used more for the athletic events. You can't see the entire field here, but this is a multi-use field here. There is another lot in the front, and between these two, there is adequate parking for the staff and as well as visitors. Do you have the figures?
About 50% of the parking pretty much is in the front.
And the planning board's going to go deep into, in the site plan, all the, the adequacy.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking the question is because of there is obviously a variance being asked for and a reduction in the amount of parking spaces. And what I wanted to know, to be sure of, was that where you were going to be queuing cars as well as buses, that's not going to, by its very nature, diminish the use of those spaces by the fact that you're queuing in that area. That's why I'm bringing it up.
It is.
Go ahead. And the other thing I wanted to bring up too is I noticed that you used the cafeteria, the numbers in the cafeteria versus the gymnasium, because you said that the very little functions. I mean, middle schools, I know in my grandchildren's grammar schools, they have science fairs where these projects and things like that, they're left up for several days. That's going to have to happen in the gymnasium. It's not going to happen in the cafeteria. I mean, you can't let it happen in the cafeteria and not have room to eat. So that will happen in the gymnasium. The gymnasium is going to have to be used so that the number that you've chosen judiciously for requirements of cars and parking spaces in the cafeteria, that is 278 less than the gymnasium. Now, if you were to use the gymnasium, and it is going to be used, there's no doubt about it, okay, that's a 40% reduction that you're looking for in the required amount of spaces. Okay, that's a lot. When you consider that there will be functions, 40% reduction is a lot.
I can respond to that. The gymnasium is that larger figure is based on the bleachers being fully extended out. They extend out actually over the basketball court, and they're designed to accommodate the entire student body, which is 560. The maximum number assumes that you've also filled the entire gymnasium with chairs, loose chairs as well. So it's really I would suspect that would be a rare situation. I can't tell you that it won't happen, but I think that to design the facility for that number is probably not a realistic. The frequency of that will be such.
If you feel that it won't happen that often, I would have to grant you that it probably won't happen that often, so that if I took an average figure, you've got an average of between 25% and 40%. We'll just take the average of the two. It's still a significant amount of spaces to do away with. Because using your numbers, if I use those numbers, it's approximately 25% that you're losing. And like I said, if we take the middle of the road figure, it's still significant.
And I think that's when we kind of talked about, I haven't been to the middle school, but the middle school is sort of like a live example of how it will work. So if people feel the current middle school parking seems adequate or reasonable compared to the new middle school, I guess you could say, we're going to have a lot more parking spaces?
Yeah, we're doubling the amount of parking, right? From what we have now.
Yeah. It's doubling from
So
now
it's sort of
to
it's definitely an improvement.
It's an improvement, but I don't see that the fact that I improve something is grounds for a variance.
Well, but then we get the impervious piece that...
What's that?
Oh, then we have to deal with the impervious piece that if we pave too much...
Correct.
That's going to impact the water supply.
That is correct, but if it's the way I'm looking at this as far as a variance is, it's not an if this then that situation. I only have to look at what I've got here and say that I'm losing quite a bit.
Well, if I may, one of the things that I frequent the schools now with my friends and kids and everything that go there. Sporting events take place, generally speaking, on the weekends or after school hours. So a lot of the staff parking will be empty at that point anyway, or a majority of it will be. So it will be multi-use as far as that goes. The only time that really reaches max capacity, and again, my daughter's at Mary D., is when they have an assembly during the day, the kids get together and sing, the parents show up to school. And that only happens maybe 3 times a year. So as far as the max capacity use, I don't think that's really an issue. I think that, the sharing of all those combined spaces is going to be pretty adequate in the long run.
Sure. Yes, Dennis?
Through the chair, yeah, and I agree with what Bob was saying. Again, I had a lot of experience at the middle school. Kids going through there. Again, like I said, a couple of years as basketball coach. Even at those events, you don't have a big crowd. The biggest crowd was just when school got out and pick up and parents, and there was, if we had this many spaces there, it wouldn't be a problem at all. This is, like I said, double the spaces that we needed there. As far as where they're going to do a science project or anything like that, again, I don't know how that's going to generate anything that's going to be over capacity. Again, they don't drive, they're middle school students. And they are constraints. They're constraints by, again, there's those same issues on that we're giving the variance for heights relate to this. There's wetlands they have to stay away from. There's also the fields now that they have to put in there. And the full utility of, I think I looked at it, was over 600,000 square feet, gets narrowed because of the aquifer and all the conditions that it put onto, as also restraints through the impervious. So I do agree, it's for the aquifer itself, it's actually better to have less impervious in here with, any kind of runoff from the cars. I'd like to see fewer cars, but, you always want to make sure there's enough cars to handle the capacity there, and I think that's what they've put in. I rely on their expertise of what they've seen and what I've seen also in the middle school. So this is a.
How would we justify the variance?
By the constraints of the aquifer and wetlands that are clearly documented in the area.
I'm done.
Rick?
I'm good.
Megan?
Yeah, no, I would agree. And even, like you did mention, when they do science projects and they display them, and if it happens over a long period of time, though, it's often that it's multiple nights. So 25 parents go one night, 40 parents go the next. It's not 600 parents going to something all at one night. I think, like you said, we can only go on what we're given. This does pretty much clearly state that any heavily attended function would probably be held at our awesome high school, and anything that was going to be like on display, which they do, I think would be over a few nights, so it would kind of come and go traffic-wise. I attended the middle school, and the parking wasn't great. This more than doubles it, so I'd say.
You drive the middle school?
Yeah. Not regularly.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any question? I know, Mark, you had a question. Yes, yes, sir.
Just saw it was big, that's all. Lost here.
My kid's 23.
Yeah, well.
My brother's kid's.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah, that's even better. Yeah, there we go. Mark Bell, 4 Field Street, town meeting member. Can you tell me how many actually parking spaces are going to be on both sites? Because that also affects the ADA with handicap parking.
There's,
That's a big thing with me.
we split up the accessible parking. The majority of the parking is out front. We have 4 accessible parking spaces located here. And there's a walk across to an accessible curb cut in front of the gymnasium and the close proximity to the main entrance. There's also 2 accessible parking spaces at the rear of the building, one of which is van accessible.
Excuse me, I'd like to have both, van and car.
Sorry?
Have both, van and car spaces. Don't, sometimes they mix them up, they have just cars, just van, have it for both.
Okay, so
In the same spot? Same location?
In the rear, there's a van accessible space, and there's a standard accessible space.
I think you're gonna, to me, I don't think you're gonna have enough ADA parking spaces. And I hope they don't give it a variance for the number of parking. Because depends how many parking spaces you have, it also determines how many ADA parking spaces you have on the site.
Yeah, I guess through the chair, that's got to be regulated by the state, correct? And you're in compliance with that? Okay.
we have the required number of accessible spaces for the 160.
61?
Yeah, 61.
Yeah, Mark,
I still don't think you got enough spots for ADA. I'm a big thing about that. I like to have at least an extra one too.
And they can take that into consideration, Mark.
Sure.
Because the parking's like, I'm probably repeating again, but I just think the parking spaces that determine how many ADA spots you have.
Right.
And Nick should have that information himself too. I know the engineer has it because I gave him the copy once. Look at it.
And they'll make sure that they do it according to the state requirements.
Yeah. Oh, you can add one more spot, be nice.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other residents on the middle school? Okay, take a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now, let's take a vote separately for the, let's vote on the height. So we want to do a separate vote for height and then separate for the parking? So I'll take a, thank you, Mark. I'll take a motion on the variance to increase the maximum height to their request, which I believe was 30. Oh,
Yeah, true, yeah, go 30, just in case.
you think we should tie it into the building plans as of a certain date again, in terms of the construction height? Do you anticipate that the 28 feet on the classrooms or the 36.5 on the main lobby, do you anticipate that changing at all in any of the final?
Not within a matter of inches. I mean, it's about 28 feet, and it might be slightly, might be a couple inches
Put no section.
higher than 28 feet.
Highest point be the 35 this way. It's within that.
I was gonna say, they're asking for the variance of a maximum up to 36. You
Right.
can just give them the variance for up to 36.
Okay.
Which gives them
Okay.
I mean, 36 feet, and then,
Okay.
Part to qualify.
Or 36.5?
yeah.
Okay. Okay, so, to make I'll take a motion to approve the variance to make the maximum height up to a maximum of 36.5 feet.
I'll make a motion to approve the variance up to a maximum height of 36 feet.
Second.
36.5?
36.5, excuse me.
I'll second the motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
And then, now we'll take a separate vote on the variance to grant relief for the parking requirements to a minimum of 161 parking spaces? Or do you want to just say 161, not say a minimum? So they're requesting 161.
You could phrase it as not less than 161 spaces to be, shown on the site or constructed on the site. if you want to phrase it that way.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the special permit with a minimum space requirement of 161 spaces.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are we approving a special permit or a variance?
Excuse me, I
Okay.
apologize, variance. Thank you.
Okay, so it's unanimous on that. Yeah, I'm just checking, make sure we took them all, so we did,
Well, we got them both.
we got them both,
And we have the impervious then from the previous
and we did the
one.
impervious.
So we should be good to go.
Yeah, you're good to go.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take a motion to close the hearing now.
Motion closed.
Is there a
Second
second?
the motion, sure.
All in favor?
Aye.
Always forget that one.
You want to do the next one too?
Sure.
Doing good.
Was it like a usual? Oh, okay, okay.
Say, a couple of people missing, then.
Okay.
Oh, okay, okay. All right, so no.
Variance though, I know.
How many people voted?
We need 5 votes.
How many did vote?
Oh, well, we all
And what about a special
voted, but as
permit?
long as we will know who to sign the actual sheet when the decision comes
As long as, for the minutes, my vote would have been.
No, that's fine, because you would still participate.
I didn't want to open Pandora. Didn't want to open Pandora's
He
box.
watched last week, he was like, I think that guy's gonna.
So can we do the decision?
Dad, I'm gonna go.
Understood. I just wanted you to know.
Tonight, it was definitely your best.
Yeah, I had so much fun. I do miss it. Getting old.
This,
My niece is in second grade.
this here.
Throwing the ball in the wrong hoop.
Okay, I can tell who's left in the audience now, so. So we have a 7:45, and so, I'm sorry it took an extra hour, but.
Yes.
Mariola St. Jean requesting a special permit under section 3.2.2.1 of the bylaws to use of a two-family property located on 39 School Street in Auburn. So welcome, maybe just let us know, are you Mariola? And
I am
okay.
Mariola.
Maybe give us a little description of what your request is.
Well, we had bought the house back in 2006 as a multifamily. And being new homeowners and everything, in 2007, we ended up, we were checking as to our property stood with our town. And at the time when the assessment was done, we had made a change in our house, that we changed the second kitchen, that this house was sold, the small kitchen as a laundry room. So when the assessor did come and check it out, this one was changed into single family. And recently, in September 2013, of course, we have decided this entire time that we've been there, we bought it with the idea that we are going to expand into this family, because at the beginning when it was sold as a multifamily, mostly as an in-law apartment. We were planning to expand it, and as we already have a grant to add to the house. That one is actually continuing right now, but we would like to change it again now from single family to a multifamily to basically match as to what we're actually adding.
Okay. Nick, did you want to say something, or?
No, I mean, if the board wants, I can add to the history of why we're here. Again, this seems like another property where the owners classified it themselves when they sold it and represented it to the homeowners. The homeowners took it, as true when the homeowners were selling it. The reason why we're even here today is because the current homeowners now went through the proper channels. They pulled the building permit and put an addition onto the back, a legal addition for an extra bedroom and a bathroom that didn't require a special permit for a two-family. However, in speaking with the homeowners, they had talked about adding another second kitchen. At that point, that would create the two-family requirement because they were going to section off part of the house and essentially make it a two-family. Basically, they were looking at it as an in-law apartment, however, because of the size of the space, it wouldn't fit our requirements for an in-law apartment, so I gave them the direction to apply for the special permit for a two-family.
The dwelling was originally a two-family home, correct?
It was.
An illegal one, basically, right?
I'm sorry?
It had no permits?
Yeah, it was an undocumented two-family, we'll say. It may have been, we don't have any records to trace back that it was ever, a legal two-family. It may have been a two-family, but we don't have any records that say, yes, it was a two-family at this point in time, other than assessor's cards.
I like Nick's description, undocumented versus illegal.
It's got plenty of, it's a 1.52 acre.
Plenty.
Yep. Heard that one on
Great,
TV.
Great side setbacks. Anyone have any concerns or anything like that? I don't know why I'm sounding negative about, why can't it be? Anyone have any positives? But, okay, we got no neighbors here, which is, I guess, a good sign.
I think it's an
Well,
opportunity.
it's also because the house is basically not changing. It's not like we're planning to rent it or anything. We have owned it with my family. It's owned by me and my parents, so we both have both areas, and we're growing as a family, and of course we need more space. So that's why we're adding.
Okay, great. Anyone, so I guess if no one has any other questions, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now, we'll take a motion on the request for a special permit for the use as a two-family.
I'll make a motion to approve the permit for a two-family use.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Okay, no, it's approved.
Thank you.
It's well kept, this driveway space.
I'll take a motion, I can't remember anything. Did I take a motion to close this hearing?
Minutes?
Oh, I did, okay. I'll take a motion to approve the minutes from
Last meeting?
the last meeting.
I'll
I'll
second
make a
that.
motion to approve the minutes from
I'll
last.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Although we gotta start giving Stacy a hard time. You gotta make a mistake one of these days. I'll take a motion to close the meeting.
Motion to close?
Second?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect.
Thank you.